Please join me in welcoming Peter Diamandis. Thanks, Bernie.
Thank you, Bernie. It is an honor and a pleasure to be here at Impact 2012. So I want to speak to you about the world that we're living in that is accelerating literally at an exponential rate. Now, I serve running two organizations, one called the Xprize Foundation and one called Singularity University. And these have given me an extraordinary view of the rate of technological change. And I have to imagine that you all feel this in your heart, your souls, and every day that you're bringing services to your clients. And it really is going to change the world, every aspect of our lives. Not in 20, 30 years, this decade, the next 2 years, the next 5 years. So allow me to share with you a little bit of a roadmap. I'm going to talk to you first about these exponential technologies. What's happening in the lab today? What's that going to drive to the market in 2, 5, and 10 years? Then we're going to look at, once these technologies are there, enabling small teams to do extraordinary things, how do you incentivize those teams to go out there and literally change the world and solve the world's grand challenges? I call this crowdsourcing genius. How do you get the smartest people in the world, no matter where they are, to help you solve your problems? Finally, we're going to look at the concept of abundance. The notion that we're living into a day and age where literally we're going to be able to meet the needs of every man, woman, and child on this planet. So that's our roadmap. Today, if you stop and you think about it, the power of these technologies are literally enabling small teams of individuals, a startup out of a garage, literally, to create technology that can touch the lives of 1 billion people. We've never lived in a world where a small group can touch the lives of 1 billion people. And this is why I believe we're literally creating a world where we're going to meet the needs of humanity. Now, when I say that to people, when I talk about meeting 7 billion people's needs on this planet, a lot of people sort of stop and say, I don't believe it. I really don't believe it. And I stop and say, why don't people believe this? And I realize that all of us inherently predict the future based on the past. And we predict the future in a linear fashion. And there's a reason for this. Because as humans, as we evolved on the plains of Africa, as our hardware and software of our brains evolved hundreds of thousands of years ago, we evolved in an environment that was best described as local and linear. Now, when I say local and linear, I mean that everything that affected you back then on the plains of Africa was within a day's walk. If something happened on the other side of the planet, you knew nothing about it. And it was linear in that the life of your great-grandparents, your parents, you, your kids, nothing changed generation to generation. Life was pretty much constant, millennium to millennium, century to century. But today, the world is anything but that. Today, we're living in a world which is best described as, global and exponential. Something happens in China and India, you know about it seconds later. Your computers know about it microseconds later. Not only has life changed century to century, decade to decade, it's changing year to year. I mean, think about the technologies that you're dependent on today that didn't even exist a decade ago. I mean, Google was just coming online. Ubiquitous Wi-Fi, Skype, online smartphones, GPS, all these things really didn't even exist a decade ago. But we run our businesses on them. Life is changing at exponential speeds. So this next chart really represents the world today. That flat blue line, that linear blue line is us. It's our Congress, it's our Senate, it's our board of trustees, it's our customers, it's our friends, it's all of us. It's humans. We think in a linear fashion. We don't know how to think any other way. That orange exponential line is technology. It is artificial intelligence, robotics, synthetic biology, digital manufacturing, nanotechnology, computers. They are growing exponential rates. What I mean by an exponential is a simple doubling. 1 becomes 2, becomes 4. And the difference between those two, between the linear way we think and the way the technology world that we're dependent on is growing, is causing a disruptive stress. Or, if you're an optimist, tremendous opportunity. Let me give you an example of what I mean here. So, Kodak, a mainstay company in the United States, 1996, $28 billion, 140,000 person company. Do you know that they invented the digital camera that put them out of business? Incredible. What happened? They said, oh, we're Kodak. We focus on beautiful, high-resolution images. This digital camera stuff, it's a toy. It's for kids. What they didn't understand was the rate of technological growth. And so this year in 2012, that same technology that they invented and they ignored put them out of business. They're bankrupt. And to put an exclamation point on the end of the sentence, guess what? Facebook comes along and acquires Instagram, another image company, for $1 billion with 13 employees. Now, ladies and gentlemen, this is the world we're living in today, where companies that were once linear are going out of business and exponential companies are coming into existence. And you need to understand the difference. You have to understand what's going on and when is a company literally ignoring the technology that will transform their industry. So, I study this. I teach this. I work on this. I'm someone who's focused on the power of this technology to transform the world and believe it can in an extraordinary fashion. About 5 years ago, with a colleague, Ray Kurzweil, we started something called Singularity University, raised the chancellor, I'm the executive chairman. We're based in Mountain View, and we study exponentially growing technologies. Our partners are Google and NASA, Autodesk, Genentech, Kaufman, Cisco, Nokia, companies that care deeply about this. And what we talk about is the idea of 10 to the 9th plus impact, the notion that literally we have the ability to impact in a positive fashion the lives of 1 billion people. And that's really a magical time today, where the world's biggest problems, hunger, water, energy, healthcare, education, are the world's biggest market opportunities. Solve them, you transform the planet, and get billions in the process. So let me talk a little bit about what exponential growth feels like, to give you sort of a guttural sense of that powerful technology that can take a multi-billion-dollar company and bankrupt it if you're not watching, or take 13 people and make them billionaires in an instant. So, as an example, if I take 30 linear steps, again, the way that we're programmed to think here on Earth as humans, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 30 linear steps, I'll go from one end of the stage to the other. And all of us can predict very clearly where you'll be in 5 linear steps, or 10, or 20, or 30. We're wired that way. We think this way. But if I say to you, take 30 exponential steps, again, a simple doubling, 1 becomes 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, and I said, where are you going to be in 30 exponential steps? Very few of us really, unless you have it memorized, would know that you'd literally be 1 billion meters away. Or to give this context, you will have gone around the planet 26 times. Now, I don't know about you, I have the same reaction every time I hear that. It's like, really? That's extraordinary. And that disconnect between 30 linear steps and 30 exponential steps orbiting the planet is really the transformative power of exponential growth. It can blindside you, or it can take your company, like Chad Hurley, a friend of mine who started YouTube, on his credit cards, from startup to being sold to Google for $1.4 billion 18 months later. Here's an example of exponential growth that a friend, Eric Schmidt, gave in Abu Dhabi at the Media Summit a few years ago. So an exabyte's 1 billion gigabytes. It's 1 billion of those things you stick, the thumb drives you stick in the side of your computer. And from the start of time through 2003, the human race digitized about 5 exabytes of data. And it's just a reference point. In 2010, we digitized 5 exabytes in 2 days. Extraordinary. In 2013, next year, we're going to be digitizing 5 exabytes of data in 10 minutes. We're literally living in the middle of a data explosion. And you, more than anybody, understand that. The amount of information you have at your fingertips today to help you advise, to help you, literally make the most efficient use of capital is growing. And it's not slowing down. And so how you use that information, how you analyze that information is everything. All of this exponential growth is riding on this curve. This is, for those of you who have seen it or know it, it's called Moore's Law. Gordon Moore was a founder of Intel who in the late 50s, early 60s realized that the number of transistors that Intel was putting on an integrated circuit was roughly doubling every 12 to 24 months. And it had been doing so for a period of years, and it looked like it was going to be doing it for a period more. And it became known as Moore's Law, the notion that when you go to Best Buy to buy your computer, next year it's going to be twice as fast for the same price. And we're living that, but we don't think about it. What I want to show you on this curve here are a couple of things. One, this is on a log curve on the left. Taking you back to your high school math, remember that on a log curve, an exponential growth is a straight line. This is curving upwards, which means that the rate at which computers are getting faster is itself getting faster. First thing. The second is, across the bottom, this is a curve over the last 100 years. And I want you to take away one important thing. The rate at which computers has been getting faster has been pretty steady through wartime and peacetime, through recession, depression, and boom time. The rate at which computers get faster is pretty much the result of faster computers building faster computers, and it's not slowing down. And in fact, one could pretty much say it's predictably moving forward. What happens if it does? What happens if it grows for the next 100 years at this rate? Well, let me show you. This is a curve from a friend of mine's book, Ray Kurzweil's The Singularity is Near. I commend to all of you. And it says that over the next 100 years, here's what we can expect. So in 2010, the rate at which a computer operates, like the ones we all have at home that's running this presentation, is at about 10 to the 11th cycles per second, which means 100 billion calculations every second, which is, for me, a very impressive number. It's extraordinary. But 11 years from now, the average $1,000 computer is going to be calculating at the rate of 10 to the 16th cycles per second, which is just a number unless you talk to a neurophysiologist who will tell you that's the rate at which the human brain does pattern recognition. That's the rate at which your visual and auditory cortex takes the signals, analyzes them, and gives you understanding. So what happens when your kids have a computer that thinks as fast as an individual? Well, their homework gets a lot easier, for sure. Or your clients have that capability. But it doesn't stop there, does it? Because another 25 years later, the average $1,000 laptop is calculating at the rate of the human race. So there's extraordinary power coming down to mine, if you would, the information explosion that we're in the middle of. And how you use that, and how you make that your colleague, your friend, is extraordinarily important. So all of that is driving extraordinary change. And these are just a few covers of magazines from the past 12 months. Print Me a Stradivarius, the whole field of optogenetics. How do you plug the internet into the human brain? And I don't want to go that far out, but I want you to know that research is going on in these directions. And the whole field of AI. Now, when I say AI, I don't mean alternative investments. I mean artificial intelligence. So I don't know how many of you saw the winning of the Game of Jeopardy by Watson, IBM supercomputer. Could you raise your hand if you saw that? So a small number. I want to take you back. This was an epic event last year. IBM built a supercomputer, a fraction of the size of the stage with a series of servers. And they wanted to demonstrate the power of this computer to understand human language and analyze information. And so they decided to challenge the all-two-time Jeopardy champions, the guy who had won the most money and the guy who had won the most number of games. Now, Jeopardy is not an easy game. It's a game of language nuance, understanding the irony or the relationship or the similarities of what's being said. And Watson went up against these top two players, and I love this title, Watson Vanquishes Human Opponents. And he did, and it did. I should say it did, right? So let me show you a clip from the winning of Jeopardy by Watson to give you some perspective.
Ken, you're in the first position. Please make a selection.
Oh, I've never said this on TV. Chicks dig me for 200, please, Jimmy.
Kathleen Kenyon's excavation of this city, mentioned in Joshua, showed the walls had been repaired 17 times. Watson.
What is Jericho?
Correct.
400, same category.
This mystery author and her archaeologist hubby dug in hopes of finding the lost Syrian city of Urkesh. Watson.
Who is Agatha Christie?
Correct. Watson.
Who is Mary Leakey?
You're right. Watson.
What is Crete?
Yes.
Let's finish Chicks Dig Me.
Edmel?
I swear they did that on purpose. So what is that? That's artificial intelligence. It's software and hardware being able to understand human language. Now, Watson was not connected to the internet when it won Jeopardy. It had downloaded into its memory banks all of Wikipedia, relevant files, and it basically had to understand what was being asked, search its information, create a theory, create context, and then answer. Extraordinary. And what makes that possible is computational power. It's that growth of Moore's law. Computational power that used to be the scarcest resource around, you'd have to have been, the head of the Defense Department or the chairman of MIT's computer science department to have that kind of computational power literally just, a few decades ago. But today, computers are the cheapest resource we can throw at a problem. Literally, any one of us can have access to a dozen, 100, 1,000 computers on demand by virtue of the cloud. Literally being able to go online and get as much as you need for a minute, a day, a year. Anyone, anywhere. Extraordinary power. I want you to imagine Watson on the cloud, accessible to anyone with a cell phone. What happens to your business, to our future, to healthcare, to education, when that kind of intelligence is available to a kid? Says, hey, tell me about this stock price. Tell me about where I should be going. Tell me about this situation. And the answer is there. AI, artificial intelligence, is going to transform everyone's industries this decade. It really is a powerful technology that is in the fabric of everything we do, and we don't notice. The next area to talk about for me is robots. This is a robot called the PR2 that a friend of mine, Scott Hassan, one of the early players at Google, has dedicated hundreds of millions of dollars to building. These PR2 robots and other robots coming online are literally going to transform our workplace. Imagine the capability of these robots to literally do menial jobs and services anywhere on the planet. This is Big Dog from Boston Dynamics, built by the military. This is called Cruelty to Robots. You laugh, and I laugh, but really, I have an emotional response when this guy kicks this robot. So what happens when robotics start entering the workforce and change, if you would, the dynamic of the cost of doing business for a Walmart or for any company? How is that going to transform? We lose jobs from the US to China and India because of cheaper labor forces, but what happens when the cost of labor is the same in the US and the same in India and China because it's the cost of electricity powering robots? How does that transform the businesses that you're investing in today? Another technology we talk about, and I'm giving you an overview of exponential technologies that we teach at Singularity University, usually over a 7-day executive program. I'm giving it to you in 7 minutes, so excuse the speed here. Another technology that's important to understand is called digital manufacturing, 3D printing. It's the closest thing to the Star Trek replicator. These are devices that allow us to print in 3 dimensions. Now, we all have probably 2 or 3 printers in our offices, in our home, and it's carbon powder on a piece of white paper. But imagine a printer that prints layer by layer by layer to build up 3-dimensional structures and can print in a variety of materials: glass, plastic, rubber, metal, even human cells. What you get is the ability to have on-demand manufacturing of unique single objects. So I'll give you some examples here. So this is a multi-dimensional polygon within a polygon within a polygon. And I'm showing you this just to show the complexity of the structures that can be 3D printed from the ground up inside the chamber of one of these 3D printers. These are high-temperature titanium turbine blades that were literally printed. This is a full-scale motorcycle in the lobby of Autodesk, one of the top companies in this whole realm of design and manufacturing, where every single component here, other than the engine, was literally 3D printed. This is a device that can 3D print in concrete. Imagine being able to 3D print a house and be able to say, here's 1,000 different designs, I pick that one, print, and have it print out the rooms and the layouts exactly the way you like. How is that going to transform the manufacturing of homes, of office buildings? This is a person who lost their lower right limb, scanned their left limb, and then 3D printed a composite replacement. Amazing technology. I talk to audiences and say, imagine you have a gala tonight you're going to, and you or your wife decides to go online, finds a dress designed in Bangladesh that morning. You hit print, and it's 3D printed in your closet to wear that evening. Remember when we used to be so impatient because you had to wait for something to be mailed to you? And now you're impatient when it's being, overnighted from Amazon, it arrived the next morning? This next decade, we're going to be hitting print and printing that device a few minutes later at your desktop. We're transforming the ability to manufacture and distribute around the planet. It's going to change, again, every industry we're looking at. The final, perhaps one of the most powerful technologies coming online right now is the whole field of synthetic genomics. This is a friend of mine, Craig Venter. Craig shocked the world in 2001 when he sequenced the first human genome. He raced the NIH to the finish line and sequenced his genome for $100 million in a year. 10 years later, 2010, he created the first synthetic life form. He basically went and created and set up the sequence of A, T, C's, and G's, the 4-letter sequence of life, to create the minimal set of genes required for something to be alive. It was 1.1 million base pairs. He set it up on his computer. He emailed the file to a company called Blue Heron that printed out this million base pair molecule piece of DNA. They FedExed him back a vial. He took that 1.1 million base pair string of DNA, stuck it into a blank cell, and it booted up for life. This is the first life form whose parents was an email file. Literally. Now, what this means is that life is becoming a programming language, where you can actually sit down like you would a computer and program a life form, an algae, a bacterium, whatever it might be, to produce the exact fuels you want or the proteins you want. Imagine if you needed a pure octane molecule or a protein that's able to, give you this kind of health benefit. And along that lines, we don't have to accept what life has given us. You can make improvements on it. We're going from literally evolution by natural selection to evolution by intelligent direction. And as an example, Craig just announced he was able to increase the efficiency of photosynthesis, the process of taking sunlight and converting it to energy in plants, which has been around for, literally hundreds of millions, if not billions of years, hundreds of millions of years. He was able to increase it a factor of 300% in the lab. Talk about transforming food production globally, or fuel production. Extraordinary stuff. So what are my takeaways for you on this first part of our journey? The first is we are moving from a world of linear thinking to exponential thinking, linear organizations and companies to exponential ones. And you need to understand what that means and where that's going. Second, there are key technologies that are driving this exponential growth. You need to understand what those are, whether a company is utilizing them or not. Are they Instagram or are they Kodak? The rate of disruption is increasing. It's not slowing down. It's only increasing. The number of people with access to these tools, creating new tools and new companies, is going through the roof. Small teams can impact billions of people. Size is no longer the advantage. It's agility. It's access to these technologies. The rate and origin of innovation, where it's coming from, and the rate is growing rapidly. And finally, as I said before, bigger is not necessarily better anymore. I'm dealing with large-sized companies from around the planet who are worried that they can't be agile enough, they can't change fast enough anymore. You know, the 20th century is literally a period of agile growth. So what are your next steps here? And if you have a piece of paper, take it out and write down a couple of things if you would. First of all, if you'd like more information about what these technologies are, I commend to you two books. Again, The Singularity is Near by Ray Kurzweil, which talks about these technologies in detail. My book, which I'll talk about in a little bit, Abundance, and I know there's a book signing after this, which really looks at how these technologies are transforming every industry on Earth. The second is a website that talks about these technologies. Is called Singularity Hub, HUB, and we really look at scanning these technologies around the world and talking about where they are going. Where are they today and where are they going? We offer at Singularity University 7-day executive programs. If you want to bring this to your clients, if you want to understand what's going on, we offer programs in depth of what's in the lab, what's coming to market, how these are converging to transform industries. SingularityU.org. And if you're interested in this program, if you just send an email to EP for executive program, EP@singularityU.org, we'll send you information about it. It's really about being educated about the transformation going on. So the second part of our roadmap here is understanding how this technology is enabling small teams to solve your problems, to solve the world's grand challenges. I call this crowdsourcing genius. My thesis is that the world is filled with a lot of smart people who have extra time on their hands. It's the people who are building Wikipedia. It's the people who are going on open source hardware and software. And my thesis is that you can incentivize these people to help you solve your problems, your challenges, your clients' challenges. I call this really exponential organizational tools to help you do huge, bold things on the planet. So as a child, I grew up passionate about space. My challenge was, literally at 5'5", I thought I had a better chance of becoming an NBA All-Star than becoming an astronaut. I looked at the stats. Literally, only 500 people ever flown into space, and I wanted to go so desperately. And I've started a dozen companies. One company takes people to the space station. We've flown 9 clients to orbit. Another one does zero-gravity flights. We flew Stephen Hawking. My most recent company is going out, literally backed by a group of billionaires, to mine precious metals from the asteroids. And so that's my dream. I drank all the Tang I possibly could growing up as a kid. And I realized that NASA wasn't going to take me there. That wasn't their job. And so I was committed to creating a commercial space industry. So I talk about the first tool that I used to help me solve my problem, and that's incentive competitions. See, I read one day about this guy, Charles Lindbergh, that he crossed the Atlantic in 1927 to win a $25,000 prize. And I had no idea about that. And it turns out that that $25,000 prize drove 9 teams to spend $400,000 trying to win that purse. Lindbergh was by far the underdog, but he made the flight. And when he made the flight, his bold, dramatic demonstration of crossing the Atlantic took the aviation marketplace a 30-fold increase. 6,000 passengers flying in 1927, 180,000 flying a year later. So I started studying the idea of prizes. Could an incentive prize open up the market for me? And I came up with the idea I was going to create a $10 million prize to create private spaceflight. $10 million as a prize was enough money to incentivize the entrepreneurs, but not the Boeings and the Lockheeds. And my rules for this prize were easy. Build a 3-person spaceship that could fly 3 adults up to 100 kilometers, land safely, and do it again within 2 weeks. And at the end of this competition, you'd have a commercial viable vehicle, right? A pilot and 2 paying passengers, or an autopilot and 3 very brave passengers who could fly to space on a regular basis. So the challenge was, and this is 1996, I didn't have $10 million. But that didn't stop me. And I decided I was going to take the seed money I had raised from the city of St. Louis, not far from here, and announce this $10 million competition, because I was so absolutely sure that someone would put their name on this competition. In fact, the X in Xprize, X was a variable to be replaced by the name of the sponsor, right? The Pulitzer Prize, the Nobel Prize, or T Prize, the Xprize. And so I went up on stage and built a group of people to support so that we could announce this idea above the line of super credibility. So on stage with me, I had not 1 astronaut, but 20 astronauts. I had the head of NASA, the head of the FAA, I had the Lindbergh family, and we announced this $10 million prize, front page around the world. And no one asked, do you have $10 million? I did not. Do you have any teams? No. And I would have told them, of course, but it was announced in a credible enough fashion, and I was absolutely confident. I mean, who wouldn't want to pay the $10 million after someone pulls this off? So I set out on my journey. And I go and I meet with billionaires and philanthropists and CEOs. I sit down with Fred Smith. I say, Fred, it's going to be the FedEx Xprize, beautiful vision, literally package delivery overnight through space. And he goes, I love it, but why isn't NASA doing this? Can anyone really pull it off? And isn't someone going to die trying? And that got me. I was like, oh my God, really? Have we begotten that risk averse? I sit down with Richard Branson twice, get really close, and again, the risk of loss of human life kills the deal. Over the course of the next 6 years, I literally met with 150 CEOs, CMOs, philanthropists around the world. Got really close so many times. At the end, the answer was no. The year is 2001. Beginning of the year, I literally have about, at this point, 20 teams calling me and saying, Peter, do you have the money? I'm building my spaceship. And I'm saying, trust me, I'll get it. And I read in the pages of Forbes magazine about this man and woman, Anousheh and Hamid Ansari, born in Tehran, come here in high school, serial entrepreneurs, had just built and sold their 3rd company, Telecom Technologies, to Sonos Networks for $1.2 billion. And in Anousheh's bio, it says, my dream is to fly in a suborbital flight into space. And I must have read that line like 3 times, not believing it. And I said, okay, this is her. This is my sponsor. I track her down vacationing in Hawaii. It had been an asset sale of her company. No one was left. She'd been there for 2 months. I FedEx her a package of materials. I'm her first meeting when she gets back, and they agree on the spot to name it and fund it. And we called it the Ansari Xprize in honor to her. That was a big relief. You got to believe that. And incredibly, that $10 million prize drove 26 teams from 7 countries around the world to spend $100 million to try and win this $10 million competition. And I'm studying this and going, oh my God, every possible technical solution to flying into space is being experimented with. And I don't have to pay any of the losers. Only the guy or gal who pulls it off. How great is that? It's fixed cost science and engineering. So this is the winning vehicle, Spaceship One. The morning is October 4th, 2004. We're in the pre-dawn morning. Overnight, 30,000 people had literally come through the air and the desert, driving from around the world to be at this historic event. Spaceship One is nestled under the wings of White Knight 1 as it's about to take off. Here she is, literally rocketing into flight, burning nitrous oxide laughing gas and polybutadiene tire rubber as its fuel. Very non-traditional source. And one of the beautiful things about incentive competitions is you get very, sort of out-of-the-box thinking. And here she is at altitude, 100 kilometers, its second time into space in just 6 days. And here we are in that winning moment when she came back down, literally opening up the era of private spaceflight. On the far left is Anusha and Amir Ansari. Next to them is myself. Next to me is Paul Allen, who had funded Burt Rutan, who's next to him, $26 million to try and go after that $10 million prize. Now, in all fairness to Paul, Burt thought he could do it for $10 million. They're all optimists. And Paul made all his money back and then some. So he made a really smart investment. Next to Burt Rutan is Brian Binney, who was the pilot on this winning flight, our Charles Lindbergh. And next to Brian Binney is Burt Rutan, who the week before it's won comes in and negotiates the rights to the winning technology after turning me down twice. Well, and that's Richard. But I'm thankful to him because he took literally a historic moment and turned it into the industry. And we always thought it would become an industry, not at that exact moment. We had some 10 billion media impressions worth over $120 million. I had all of the sponsors calling me and saying, damn, I wish we had backed that prize. We got the front page of Google, which was very cool. And let me take you back there to that winning moment to give you a feel for literally what happened. We're announcing today something called the Xprize, a $10 million contest to privately build a spaceship that's able to carry 3 individuals, fly to 100 kilometers altitude, and do that twice inside of 2 weeks.
I have never been myself as creative as I have eyeballing this goddamn prize.
Hello and welcome to Mojave here in the high desert of California on this incredible day. Now you are going to witness history in the making.
Release. Arm. Fire.
The Ansari Xprize inspired international competition, drove regulatory reform, and made history.
The Xprize for $10 million.
It ignited a personal spaceflight revolution.
And now the winning vehicle, Spaceship One, is hanging in the center of the Smithsonian Air and Space Museum, right above the Apollo 11 capsule and next to the Spirit of St. Louis that inspired it in the first place. How cool is that, huh? Thank you. I mean, the power of this tool of incentive competitions to literally get geniuses around the world to solve a problem for you at a fixed price is extraordinary. It unleashes literally the passion and desire that people have to want to do significant things. I mean, these are the hallmarks of an incentive competition. You get 10 to 40 times the money you put up, spent to try and win your prize. You only pay the winner. It's efficiency of capital. You spark not a single solution, but an entire industry, right? You have one winner, but a dozen companies are created to move that forward. And best of all, you get very non-traditional solutions. And the leverage is huge, right? Ultimately, we had $2.5 million from St. Louis that allowed us to bring in $10 million from the Ansari family, that drove $100 million in team expenditures, that drove over $1 billion of investment in this marketplace. So as you talk to your clients who have been so successful in life and want to make an impact on the world, why aren't they using incentive competitions for their philanthropy to drive the breakthroughs that they desire? On the heels of this, I was able to build an extraordinary board of trustees, bringing in the CEO of Google, Larry Page, Dean Kamen, Craig Venter, James Cameron joining our board, Ratan Tata from India, Elon Musk, Jim Giannopoulos from Fox, the Schmidt family, Wendy Schmidt, really people interested in the world's biggest problems. And I'm honored to have them on as my board to support me in really attacking the world's grand challenges using these incentive prizes. And where we're going next is really to look at Xprizes in life sciences and exploration in partnership with Shell, in energy environment with Cisco, in education and global development. What are the problems in the world? What are the market failures? What should exist that does not? Because I tell you, there is no problem that cannot be solved with the right intelligence, passion, technology, and capital. Nothing. We can do it. It's a matter of focusing the passionate, committed mind. So a few examples. On the space front, with Google, we have something called the $30 million Google Lunar Xprize to take us back to the moon. If you're interested, all you have to do is build a robot, land on the surface of the moon, send back YouTubes, travel a half a kilometer, and send back a few photos. You do that, $30 million is yours. So important to our nation's future as we commercialize space that NASA matched it with $30 million of contracts. And we now have literally 25 teams around the world competing to do something that only the US and Soviet Union has done before. Does it have to be a $10 million purse? No, it does not. If you remember the BP oil spill that was going on and on and on and on, James Cameron had just joined my board and said, Peter, you have to do something about this. When we looked at what we could do, we realized that one of the challenges was cleaning up the oil on the ocean surface before it hits the land. And that had not changed in 21 years between the Exxon Valdez in 1981 or 1980 and the BP oil spill. So we asked teams and created a competition. If you can at least double the rate of oil spill cleanup, you'll win a prize. Wendy Schmidt funded the competition, about $3.5 million, $2 million to run it, $1.5 million of purse money. And we announced this to the world. What happened? We had 350 pre-registered teams from around the planet come into this competition. We narrowed it down to the top 10 teams and said, okay, those of you who can double the oil spill cleanup rate from 1,100 to 2,200 gallons per minute qualify to win. And the team that does the most wins. We gave them access to this facility, the world's largest oil spill cleanup facility located in New Jersey, from support from the US government. And what happened was the following, which shocked me. 7 of the 10 teams doubled what had been the industry standard for the last 20 years, what a multi-$100 billion industry had not done. Now, these teams' average size was probably 40 or 50 people. The winning team was able to improve the oil spill cleanup 6-fold. But what was really the shocker was one of the teams that was able to double the oil spill cleanup rate was a team that met in a Las Vegas tattoo parlor. I kid you not, you can't make up this stuff. It was a team where the tattoo artist was the designer talking to one of his clients about this competition he heard and said, how would you do this? And the tattoo artist had a design. His client funded him. They built a scale model in the guy's swimming pool. The first time the full-scale hardware saw oil and water was in this facility. And let me show you a clip so you really believe me.
My full-time job back home is running a tattoo studio in Las Vegas.
We get asked all the time, we go, how long have you been in the oil industry? And I go, well, counting today?
Isn't that great? I mean, listen, if I had said, which team are you going to back and invest in, you would have never, at least I would have never picked them as the target. And that's the beauty of the cognitive genius out there. You automatically back the winner. And sometimes the winner is not the expert. I define the expert as the person who can tell you exactly how it can't be done. So, where are we going next with the Xprize? We announced the Qualcomm Tricorder Xprize. $20 million up by Qualcomm, $10 million for the purse, for the first team to build a handheld mobile device that you can talk to, cough on, do a finger blood prick, whatever it is, usable by a mom at 2 a.m. in the morning or in the middle of Mumbai that can diagnose you better than a team of board-certified doctors. Announced this in January. As of November 1st, we have over 250 teams around the world entering this competition. We expect a winner in the next 3.5 years. We're talking about transforming the entire healthcare industry. This is the tricorder from Star Trek, right? The medical tricorder. Bones, what's going on there? We're talking about an organogenesis Xprize. Go from a skin cell to a transplantable heart, liver, lung, or kidney. Talking about reinventing learning. A global literacy Xprize. Again, the Qualcomm competition is funded and going. These other competitions are concepts right now, where some of your financial clients might want to put their name on it. Global Literacy Xprize, literally asking, how can you take a team of students who have zero literacy and take them to full literacy in a way that is scalable? There are 880 million illiterate children, or illiterate people on the planet, 10% of which are children. Let me talk about a second example of, if you would, incentivized tools. These are data competitions. This is a favorite quote I have from Bill Joy. No matter who you are, most of the smartest people in the world work for someone else. And it's also true. And no one knows this better than my friend Rob McEwen. See, Rob, in 1989, bought a gold mine, unlike at least me. And he asked his engineers, his geologists in that gold mine, how much gold do we have? I need to build a processing facility. And they said, they gave him an answer which is not very good for keeping your job. They said, we have no idea. And so where do gold mines typically keep their data? Behind a firewall in a safe. What Rob did was something very different. He said, I'm going to take this data and put it up on the web. And I'm going to ask people around the world to show me where the gold is in my facility. He put up a $500,000 prize. He had 1,400 data requests, 125 entries. And the top 3 winners, which showed him where to find 6 million ounces of gold, none of them, 2 were from New Zealand, 1 was from Russia, none of them visited his facility. What they did was they looked at the data in a different way. And about a $500,000 to $1 million investment netted him $3 billion in value. So we talked about incentive competitions as the first tool. These are machine learning data competitions as another tool that allows you to do big and bold things in the world. Another tool is gamification. How do you take something that's difficult and hard and make it fun for people around the world to play with to solve your problem? And so one of the problems out there in the science world is, how do you create a protein structure from the amino acid sequence? You see, a protein is a sequence of amino acids that comes off a ribosome, and it folds into a 3-dimensional structure depending on the sequence of amino acids, and the structure tells you what that protein does. Is it an enzyme? Is it a piece of muscle? Is it useful as a drug? Is it an active site? What does that protein look like, and what does it do? And it's always been a supercomputer problem to be able to predict how these amino acids fold into a protein. And a group at the University of Seattle said, can the human mind, because of its pattern recognition capability, do this better than a computer? And they created a game called Fold It that allowed you to play a game and literally fold a protein on the screen. And it turned out after a few months that, in fact, people were better. People were much better than computers at doing this protein folding. And they decided to look at the question, who is the best protein folder out there in the world? Was it a Caltech professor or an MIT grad student? And when they looked at it, they found out that the best protein folder was none of those. It was a woman in the middle of Manchester, England, who during the day was an executive secretary at a rehab clinic, and at night was the world's best protein folder. I don't have a video for you on that one, but trust me. And it's the idea of the cognitive surplus out there being able to solve your problems. So these are the tools. that are taking linear thinking to exponential. And we talked about these exponential technologies that we teach at Singularity University. And these are the exponential organizational tools. I only talked about a few of these: incentive competitions, gamification, but there's on-demand workforce. Do you need 1 million employees for a day or for an hour? Machine learning data competitions, crowdsourcing, crowd wisdom, all of these things are powerful technologies coming online. And so what are my takeaways from this second segment? One, you can tap into the global genius out there, the cognitive genius, to help you solve your problems if you know how to do it. Two, Xprizes, incentive competitions are efficient, leveraged ways to create hardware, software, change, and solve problems out there. Three, literally, we can drive 40-fold value on invested dollars. And finally, the crowd will participate in something that they believe in, that they are passionate about. They want to contribute. They want to help you solve your problems if you can frame it in the right fashion. So if you have that piece of paper, the next steps I would offer to you, if you're interested in this, the first is my next book is on this whole subject of exponential organizational tools. How do you crowdsource, crowdfund, crowd wisdom, all of these do-it-yourself communities? And if you go to my website, Diamandis.com, I'm putting out a blog every 2 weeks. I'm interviewing the top experts in these fields. It's free. I just want to be able to get this information out to people. So I'm literally providing details on how this can be used for you every week. The second is, if you'd like to learn more about Xprizes for your clients, we've created a special page on the Xprize website. If you go to xprize.org/FA for financial advisor, I'd be pleased to provide you details about how incentive competitions can be used to transform philanthropy for your clients if they're interested. So, our next stage here is about the world of abundance thinking. Now, I wrote this book, and I know there are copies available. We hit number 1 on Amazon, number 2 with my partner Stephen Kotler. The future is better than you think. And when I go out there and talk about this, and I say to groups of people like yourself, we're heading towards a world of abundance, people look at me and go, really? I mean, haven't you heard about the financial crisis in Europe and the terrorist activities here? How can you possibly be talking about a world of abundance? And it hits me that, ladies and gentlemen, there's a problem here. You see, the news media is a drug pusher. And negative news is their drug. And every device that you have, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, on your smartphone, on your tablet, your radio, your television, your newspaper, you get this negative news delivered 24/7, over and over and over again. And there's a reason for this. You see, on those same plains of Africa, 100,000, 1 million years ago, if you missed a piece of good news, well, that was too bad. But if you missed a piece of bad news, it could have been your life. So in the ancient part of your brain, the midbrain, the temporal lobe, there's a sliver called the amygdala. And the amygdala was designed to scan everything you see and hear and to look for negative news. And so 10 to 1, 100 to 1, you pay far more attention to negative news than positive news. And the news media and our politicians know this. And they will feed it to you over and over and over again, because when you hear, they go, oh my God, what was that? But let me show you the facts. You see, over the last 100 years, we've been living during an extraordinary age. The human lifespan has more than doubled. The per capita income for every nation on this planet has more than tripled. The cost of food has come down 13-fold, energy 20-fold, transportation 100-fold, communications over 1,000-fold. Steven Pinker at Harvard has just shown us that we're living during the most peaceful time ever in human history. I mean, would you know this to be watching the media today? Sure, there are problems, but over the last 100 years, even though we lost so many lives in World War I, World War II, the Great Plague, we've had an extraordinary century driven by technology. And guess what? It's not stopping. It's accelerating. You see, technology is a resource-liberating force. And in abundance, I open up with this story. The guy on the left is Napoleon III. The dude on the right is the king of Siam. He's coming over to the palace of Versailles for dinner. The year is 1840. To show his wealth and his prosperity, Napoleon feeds all of his troops with silver utensils. Napoleon himself is fed with gold utensils. And the king of Siam, he's fed with aluminum utensils. You see, aluminum in 1840 was the most precious metal on the planet. Even though the Earth is made of aluminum 8.3%, you can't go in and dig out pure aluminum. All the aluminum on Earth is bound with oxygen and silicates to form this clay-like substance called bauxite. And it was so energetically difficult to extract aluminum from bauxite, it was worth more than gold and platinum. Which is why the tip of the Washington Monument in D.C., built in that same decade, is tipped with aluminum. And then this technology of electrolysis came along that made it so easy to extract aluminum from the bauxite that we now use it with a throwaway mentality. Aluminum cans, aluminum foil, aluminum airplanes. Technology taking that which was scarce and making it abundant. So when I think about that, we talk about energy scarcity. Ladies and gentlemen, we live on a planet that is bathed in energy. 5,000 times more energy hits the Earth's surface in a year than we consume as a species. Talk about water scarcity and water wars. We live on a water planet. 2/3 of our planet is covered with water. Yes, 97.5% is salt water, 2% of the polar ice caps, and we fight over 0.5%. But in the same way that technology allowed us to extract aluminum from the bauxite, there is technology coming online today that is transformative, that will give us water for a thirsty world this decade. And think about this man, a Maasai warrior in the middle of Kenya, on a cell phone. He's got better communications than President Reagan did 25 years ago. Think about that. And if he's on a smartphone on Google, he's got access to more knowledge and information than President Clinton did 15 years ago. Living in a world of information and communications abundance. We talked about the Tricorder, giving literally anyone on the planet advanced healthcare capability if they're the richest to the poorest. Just like Google is the same for that Maasai warrior or Larry Page. And that same AI on the cloud is going to be able to literally talk to every kid, know their favorite language, their favorite sports star, movie star, color, what they did last week, and give them an education that's so personalized, it'll transform their lives, no matter where they are, in Manhattan or Mumbai. And finally, one of the most important points I want to deliver to you today is what I call the force of the rising billion. So this is Earth's population. We just crossed the 7 billion mark. 7 billion people on planet Earth. Now, those of you concerned about population explosion, don't be. Because it's been proven that there are two things that drive the population growth rate down. Educating a populace and making them healthier. And guess what? That is happening across the board around the globe. But that's not the point of this slide. The point of the slide is this. In 2010, there were just shy of 2 billion people connected on this planet. 2 billion people conducting commerce, communicating, sharing ideas. This decade is the decade of connection. This decade is a decade where we're going to add, literally go from 2 billion to 5 billion people connected online. 3 billion new minds are coming online. 3 billion people who've never bought anything. 3 billion people who've never communicated and shared ideas. 3 billion people who are going to transform this planet, transform this global economy. You see, these 3 billion people, these 3 billion new minds are going to discover, create, invent, consume. They represent the injection of tens of trillions of dollars into the global economy. They represent your customers' customers' customers. They represent the greatest epic of innovation ever. And it's happening now. It will transform every industry we have yet again. So what are my takeaways here? My takeaways, first off, are, the news media feeds you disproportional information. Open up any newspaper and look at the number of negative news articles. And you have to ask yourself, is it really all negative news out there? Because it's not. You just don't see the positive news. It's not your business to look at that. But it's there in spades. Our brains are wired to hear the negative news. The second is that technology is creating an amazing century ahead, liberating resources left and right, transforming that which was scarce and making it abundant. And we're accelerating towards this age of abundance where literally 5 billion new consumers. And finally, these 3 billion new minds are joining our global economy. And they're going to change where companies do their business, what they sell, and who they sell it to. So, obviously, to you, how does all of this change the way you invest? Where you invest? Where your customers invest, your customers' businesses? On that piece of paper, I urge you, if you're interested, you can follow my adventures. My goal is to share where this technology is going, to share with you how this is impacting our industries and our worlds, and for me, most importantly, to focus this technology on solving the world's grand challenges, because a passionate, educated, healthy globe is a peaceful one, a transformative one. Ladies and gentlemen, we are entering an age of abundance. I thank you so very much.